Westerplatte is where Poland stationed troops in order to protect the country's interests along the Gulf of Gdansk, which leads to the Baltic Sea. It was on this spot, on September 1st, 1939, the first shots were fired to start the Second World War. Hi, I'm Matt, and welcome to another edition of Borders on Budgets. On this episode, we are in Westerplatte, just outside of Gdansk, Poland, to see where the Second World War started.
Hi, I'm Matt, and welcome to this pack of matches, and thank you very much for tuning in.
Seems like this should be on the Blair Witch.
Next episode. A reminder, Borders on Budgets.
At 4:48 on September 1st, 1939, Germany, from the Gulf of Gdansk and from across the Vistula River, fired upon the Polish troops stationed at Westerplatte. This small peninsula was important for the Poles because it allowed Poland access to the Baltic Sea. And it was this free and unencumbered access which was one of 14 points of peace as drafted by American President Woodrow Wilson to end the First World War. Also part of that 13th point of peace was a free and independent Poland. This Polish defensive unit might very well have seen the first shots during the Second World War, and it would have retaliated onto German ships from this vantage point into the Vistula River. One of the guardhouses at Westerplatte, bullet holes remain evidence of the fighting that occurred here. While Polish troops were stationed at Westerplatte to protect Poland's interest toward the Baltic Sea, the city of Gdansk was not Polish territory. About 2,000 square kilometers was deemed to be a free state and administered by the League of Nations after the end of World War I. Complicating matters, though, was that 90% of Gdansk's population was German, and the city was otherwise known as Danzig. In case there was any doubts about Adolf Hitler's plans for Poland, even before the first shots of World War II were fired. Westerplatte was only supposed to be a 12-hour battle. However, Polish soldiers did manage a week's worth of fighting before eventually surrendering. In conjunction with the inaugural naval battle of the Second World War on September 1st, 1939, the first fighting on land occurred about 8 kilometers away in Gdansk. Upon hearing the rounds from the battleship, German soldiers attempted to lay siege to this building, thus becoming the first battle of the Second World War. The Polish Post Office was one of the few Polish national buildings in the Free State of Gdansk and served as a symbolic reminder of Poland's claim to this city. The Polish Post Office Museum was opened on September 1st, 1979, 40 years after the start of the Second World War. Because of the precarious nature of the Polish Post Office in Gdansk, and because the postmen were protecting Polish interests, the postmen themselves had military training. Although the Germans weren't expecting a significant fight at the post office, they were prepared for battle. This was one of their cannons. Meanwhile, the postmen were only equipped with a handful of rifles and grenades. After refusing to surrender, the postmen suffered an extensive firebombing campaign for hours after water and electricity was cut off to the building. Upon surrender, and waving the universal white flag of surrender, not one, but the first 2 postmen were fired upon and killed immediately outside of the entrance to the building. Unlike the captured soldiers at Westerplatte, the postmen were deemed to be illegal combatants and were thus subjected to German laws and judgments. Many of the postmen were executed within the month. To commemorate the battle, this statue, designed with socialist-era features, was erected in 1979, 40 years after the battle. In this statue, it shows a fallen postman handing off his rifle to Nike, the Greek goddess of victory. The defeats at Westerplatte and at the post office showed how overly mismatched Poland was against Germany, and eventually Poland fell within the first month of the war. Even after the end of World War II, when the Nazis were defeated and sent back to Germany, it was the Soviet Russians who came into Poland and used this country for their own strategic and defensive purposes behind the Iron Curtain. Finally, in June of 1989, with fair, free, democratic elections, Poland regained its freedom and independence 50 years after the end of the Second World War. Thank you for tuning in to this edition of Borders on Budgets. A reminder, Borders on Budgets, long distance hikes, slices of life, not a lot of money. From the Polish Post Office Museum in Gdansk, Poland, thank you for tuning in, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.
Ooh! Tunnel! It's a tunnel! Oh, how neat! Woo, woo!
This war memorial is near to the Polish Post Office Museum in Gdansk. Did you find this video informative? Good. Help Borders on Budgets. Hit the subscribe button below, and don't forget to share this story with those who enjoy military history.